Thanks for joining us on In the Studio. This time, Dan Boshart checks in with Ricky Warwick. Now, you might remember Ricky. He's the lead singer from Thin Lizzy and also Black Star Riders. He has a brand new solo album out now called When Life Was Hard and Fast. It's out on Nuclear Blast Records. But before we check in with Dan and Ricky, how about we take a look at the music video for You Don't Love Me from Ricky Warwick.
It's alright, it's alright. Well, actions contradict your words, don't mean anything. You don't love me anymore. You don't love me. You don't love me. You don't love me.
Where are you?
Windsor, Ontario, right across from Detroit.
I know it well. I know it well. I've played there. I've played the casino there a couple of times.
Really? I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Did you play with Thin Lizzy or?
No, I played there. Last time I played there, I was opening for Cheap Trick. I was going back about 10 years.
Oh,
I solo acoustic. I just opened for Cheap Trick at a show there.
really? Wow.
And yeah, and I have a good friend, Jay Rustin, who's a producer who produces a lot of the Black Star Rider stuff. He's from there too.
You have like a real pedigree of musicians that you've performed with in your various bands.
Yeah, I think it's one of the perks of doing this for 30 years and meeting artists that have inspired me and artists that I admire and becoming friends with them. And I'm obviously in a fantastic position now where I know these people and I get to work with really great, talented people that are extremely successful at doing what they do. And first and foremost, are my friends now, which is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, victim of circumstance, but it's a nice being a victim of those circumstances.
Well, you and Scott Gorham go way back, don't you?
We do, yeah, we go back almost 30 years, yeah.
How did you first meet him?
I met Scott back in 1990, I think it was, 89, 90. And my ex-wife and his wife worked together at MTV in Europe. So I'd met Scott's wife before I met him. And my ex-wife said, hey, I'm working with Christine Gorham. She's married to Scott Gorham. I was like, hang on, wait a minute. What? You're working with who?
Yeah.
Thin Lizzy are my favorite band. Can I meet him? And we ended up meeting up. There's a big rock festival in the UK called Donington, and MTV were working at it that day. And Scott drove his wife up, and they went off to work at the festival. And he was going to give me a ride up to the festival later. And I met him in a hotel bar, and we hit it off. And we drove up to the festival together, and just been friends ever since.
Did he know about you before you met him?
Oh yeah, he knew about my old band, The Almighty, and then when I did my first solo record back in 2002, Scott actually came over. Joe Elliott produced the record, and we did it in Joe's studio in Dublin. And Scott flew over for the weekend to play on a couple of tracks, and he heard the solo record and was really blown away by it. And I guess that when he was putting Thin Lizzy back together, he talked to Joe, and Joe was like, why don't you hit up Ricky? He's a Lizzy nut, and he sort of sings in the same vocal range as Phil, and each other. And Scott's like, oh, that's a cool idea, and I think that's really, really how it came about.
I love the fact that you've taken the Thin Lizzy band basically and kind of progressed into the future under a new name.
I think playing the Lizzy songs live is one thing, and writing new material was a step too far. And I think it was the elephant in the room. I think we were getting a little bit carried away with the success of the live shows, and then being in a band with writers that was, oh, let's write some new material. And then suddenly, hang on a minute, making a record without Phil, it's sacrilege, And I think when the penny dropped, that was a weight off everybody's chest. I think it was a question of letting your head rule your heart, and then when everybody realized the enormity of what that would be, we decided, okay, we got these killer songs. What are we going to do with them? And I sort of said to Scott, we should just, put a band together, come up with a band name and put them out and let people hear them and let people judge them. Might be one album, they might not dig it, but we like the songs. Let's get them out there. And lo and behold, here we are 9 years later, about to do the fifth Black Star Riders album. So something must be right. But yeah, it's just such an honor to sing. People have to realize that people die. That's what happens.
Yeah.
The music doesn't. And if it's done with sincerity, integrity, and played from the heart and delivered with a passion and a power that's true to the ideal of what the original artist set out to do, I don't have a problem with that. You can tell when people are phoning it in or doing it for the money. It stinks. But I think when people do it respectfully and with grace, I think it's great to keep the music alive. Turn on people that maybe never got to see the original band, people that maybe never heard of the original band, that can then go back and check out how great the original guys were in their guises. I mean, well, I don't see what's wrong with that.
How do you keep so motivated?
I just love to create music. Dan, I love to write. I never take it for granted. I get the greatest job in the world, and I get to write songs every day for a living, and that in itself is amazing and inspirational. And I try to treat it like a job, because it is a job, and so I try to treat it with the respect that it deserves. I'm consumed by music. I'm consumed by what I do. I think about it 24/7. It's always on my mind. And it's part of who I am. I don't really know what else to do. I get bored very easily too, so that's maybe got something to do with it,
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the new album. Did you start the process of this album at the beginning of the pandemic? What's the timeline for that? Were there any challenges?
No, the pandemic didn't affect this album at all, Don. The album was demoed in 2018. It was recorded in April of 2019, and it was always scheduled for release early 2021. Last year we thought we were going to be touring all year with Black Star Riders. I refer to Black Star Riders as the day job, so everything else we kind of schedule around what the schedule is with Black Star Riders. We put a Black Star Riders record out end of 2019. We were able to get one European tour in before we went into lockdown, but 2020 was supposed to be all Black Star Riders. 2021 was going to be put out the solo record and tour it. So the timeline hasn't changed, but the pandemic didn't have any influence on the songs or recording or anything, because it was all written prior to it happening.
I read somewhere you talked a little bit about the song "Clown of Misery." I love the sound of that, the atmosphere, the feel. Was that something premeditated when you did the vocals on your iPhone, or is that like something you usually do and it just kind of happened that way?
No, complete accident. Really, I got the idea. The song came really quickly. I grabbed the phone, grabbed the guitar, threw it down, played it, sent it to Keith Nelson, who I co-produced the record with. Said, I think this could be a contender. What do you think about recording this? And he went, it's done. I went, what are you talking about? It's done. It's an iPhone demo, dude. It's like, really? He says, no, man. He said, look, there's a feel and a desperation that you've captured here. He said, what if we were to make it sound like an old Hank Williams, 78, or an old Woody Guthrie 78, and distort it and crackle it up a little bit? And I went, it's great. What a great idea. And that's what we did, because he felt, and I agree with him, there was a certain angst and desperation in my voice and the way it recorded that suited the desperation and angst of the lyric. And he felt that if we tried to gloss it up too much, we would lose that sort of intensity.
A lot of your music, if not all of it, is very autobiographical, I guess.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about growing up in northern Belfast and how much that influenced your writing.
It didn't. I lived there till I was 14, and then I moved to Scotland. Obviously, I grew up at the height of the Troubles over there. But when you're born into something and you don't know any different, that's the norm. So I just thought that was my childhood. There's soldiers on the street, there's riots, there's bombs going off, there's shootings. That's normal to me. That's where I live. So it didn't register a lot as a kid. We just got on with it, as most people did, and tried to make the best we could of the situation that we found ourselves in. But it wasn't until I moved away until later life, you look back and you go, oh my God, you know, I was a dead guy we had to walk around going to school that morning. You remember that time that army patrol came down and blocked the street off? Remember the time the bomb went off? You remember so-and-so got killed? And suddenly you go, wow. And then you reach back in there and all these stories and these characters that you'd met growing up suddenly came to the fore in my mind. And it wasn't much until later in life that I started really writing about my experiences growing up there. And you know, I go back a lot to Northern Ireland, so I'm always going back and visiting old childhood haunts and families and relatives and characters that are still with us from those days. The great thing about the Irish people is they're great storytellers, and they're a great source of inspiration for me, you know.
You also write a lot with your friend Sam Robinson.
Yes, sir.
Is he a friend from Ireland or from Scotland?
He's a friend from Northern Ireland. Sam and I both grew up in East Belfast, both about the same age, both support the same soccer team. Sam's a great writer. Sam has a beautiful poetic way with words, and you know, I just love it because he'll send me something. You know, I always get an email from Sam. I know it's going to be great, and he just taps into, you know, we had similar upbringings, working class boys growing up there, and he has a great way of just tapping into shared experiences that we had, and his poetry with words is just stunning, and he makes writing the melodies, you know, when I write with him, writing the melodies and the chords, he makes it so easy.
I really love your album When Patsy Cline Was Crazy and Guy Mitchell Sang the Blues. Is that kind of yours and Sam's Brown Dirt Cowboy album?
Absolutely, you've nailed it. It's growing up in Northern Ireland. It's our shared childhood. It's our experiences of growing up in the 70s and the 80s, and then looking to the future and beyond. You know, that album is predominantly all about growing up in Northern Ireland. And what I like about it is that, you know, you don't have to be from Northern Ireland just to relate to it. That you can be from anywhere and relate to a lot of the experiences and feelings that are in that album. But we specifically wanted to write about a time and an era that was very close to our hearts. Yeah, it was a lot of fun working that record with Sam. It really was.
Thanks to Dan Boshart and Ricky Warwick for such a great interview. Check out Ricky's new solo album, When Life Was Hard and Fast, on Nuclear Blast Records. It's out now. That's all we have for you this time. I'm Dan Savoy. We'll see you next time on In the Studio with 519.